Understanding chain analysis. Chain analysis is the principal tool you will use during individual sessions with your DBT therapist to explore and learn from a challenging moment from the week before your DBT therapy session. You can anticipate which moment will be the focus of chain analysis each week by looking at your diary card. Chain analysis breaks down the events in one of these moments like the frames in a comic strip so that you can pay attention to pre-existing vulnerabilities, triggering situations, body sensations and emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. These 5 elements make up each link in the chain, like frames in the comic strip, leading from the start of the event to its conclusion and possible repercussions. Let's look at how chain analysis can help us describe a series of events from the beginning to the end using a made-up situation for a person we will call Natasha. Natasha has a health condition that gives her pain and sometimes makes it difficult for her to sleep, leaving her feeling very tired in the morning. Natasha's car has some problems and she lives in a neighborhood where there is some crime. These things are a drain on her emotional energy most weeks compared to someone who has reliable transportation or someone who doesn't have to worry about crime in their neighborhood. Natasha is able to pay her living expenses, but money is tight. Natasha also periodically deals with racial microaggressions from some people, further taxing her emotions. These are examples of vulnerability factors. Vulnerability factors are like little fires burning up our emotional reserves, leaving us vulnerable to sudden stress. Common vulnerability factors are our earlier emotional state, pre-existing stressors, environmental stressors, sleep deprivation, hunger, or the use of mood-altering substances like alcohol, marijuana, or illegal drugs. Even if someone does not have any vulnerability factors, stressful or triggering problem situations will come up from time to time. Sometimes these can be difficult to navigate. In chain analysis, identifying the prompting event that triggers a chain of emotions, thoughts, and behaviors is what we would call the first link in the chain. Let's look at a prompting event in the life of Natasha. One morning, after a restless night, Natasha drove into work and started her day at the office. While at work, she received an email from her boss which read, "Your performance review is due this week. Please come to my office at noon." The past several months have been difficult for Natasha and she is behind on her work. When Natasha read the email, she felt her heart beating hard and had a sinking feeling in her stomach. She also felt an urge to run out of the office. Now, imagine Natasha doing chain analysis about this situation. Natasha would describe the prompting event this way. I received an email from my boss that I had a performance review today, and I was behind on my work. She would write it down as the first link in the chain. After describing the prompting event, like the first frame in a comic strip, the next link will be to describe the body sensations and emotion label that she felt. Emotions are physical sensations triggered by signals sent out from the brain. In this diagram, we use a heart symbol. Imagine a heart that has 2 interlocking chambers. On the left side of the heart, Natasha writes down the physical sensations that she experienced in her body. Rapid heartbeat, sinking feeling in the stomach, urge to run away. Then, on the right side of the heart, she writes down the name of the emotion or emotions that she felt. Fear. It can be helpful whenever writing down the name of an emotion to also rate the intensity of the emotion using a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is equal to no intensity, all the way up to 10, extreme intensity. This scale is known as the SUD scale. SUD in SUD stands for Subjective Units of Distress. Here is how Natasha used SUDs to rate her anxiety. Fear, 7. In chain analysis, the next thing to record is either a thought or a behavior. Here's what Natasha thought. Ugh, I'm behind on my work. I might lose my job. Each of these thoughts become one link in the chain. Behaviors also can be links in the chain. Here's what Natasha did next after those thoughts. Behavior. Left the office for a few minutes to walk around the building. While walking around the building, Natasha kept thinking about what might happen in her performance review with her boss. She noticed the following thoughts. I remember when I lost my last job. I'm probably going to lose this job. I'm such a disappointment. Situations, thoughts, and behaviors all have an impact on our emotions and their corresponding body sensations. We can measure this impact using SUDS. Here's how Natasha measured the impact walking around the building and thinking these thoughts had on her emotions. Fear, 8. Sadness, 9. Anger, at self, 10. As she was walking around, she noticed that she had the urge to hit something. She looked for something to hit, and finding a telephone pole, she hit it several times, injuring her hand. Here's how she would record this on a diary card. Thought. I want to hit something. Behavior. Looking for something to hit. Behavior. Saw a telephone pole. Behavior. Hit the pole, injuring hand. The pain in Natasha's hand temporarily distracted her from the intense emotions she was feeling. However, as the pain subsided, she started to have new sad feelings of regret and disappointment for handling her emotions this way. She began to worry what people in the office would think if they saw her injury, especially her boss, whom she needed to see at noon. Here is how she recorded the emotions. Fear, 6. Sadness, 7. Anger, at self, 5. Upon entering her office building, she was tense and upset. During her meeting, because her emotions were still intense, she responded to feedback from her boss intensely, straining the meeting. This is how she would record it. Strained meeting with boss. When the meeting ended, she was discouraged and angry at herself for how she handled her feelings. She decided to leave work early and go home and sleep, a decision that had the impact of making her fall farther behind on her work projects. This decision planted the seeds for more stress to accumulate when she went into work the next day. The last part of chain analysis, especially when there is an undesirable outcome, is to look at the consequences of the behavior chain. Here is what Natasha recorded. Consequences. Injured hand, self-loathing, procrastination. Using chain analysis, we can look at each step or link in the chain leading up to an outcome for Natasha. Chain analysis is a tool to look at each step in a behavior chain, looking for opportunities to make different choices about thoughts and behaviors to improve the odds of lowering emotional distress and potentially achieve a different outcome should a similar situation arise in the future. So now let's imagine another possible outcome for the situation. We will look at how things would have turned out if Natasha had made some different choices about how to handle her fear triggered by a performance appraisal. Walking around the building helped Natasha diminish her anxiety just a bit. She then noticed that she was thinking differently. Here's what she noticed and recorded in her chain analysis. I know I'm behind in my work, but the reason I'm behind is not entirely my fault. My boss is a reasonable person, and if I explain this to him calmly, I think he will understand. Everyone has a performance appraisal once a year. Having a performance appraisal doesn't necessarily mean that I'm in trouble. Natasha noticed that as she had these thoughts, her stomach started to relax. She also felt less of an urge to keep walking. She measured her emotions using SUDS one more time. Fear, 5. Natasha returned to the office and began to organize her desk until she had her meeting. Organizing is something that makes Natasha feel accomplished. This kept her mind busy to keep her from worrying more about the upcoming meeting. Here's how she recorded this on the diary card. Organized desk. Fear, 5. By throwing her attention into organizing, she kept her anxiety from rising again, but unlike the more optimistic thoughts she had had during her walk, organizing did not make her anxiety go down more. This is not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes our interventions in the forms of thoughts or behaviors have the impact of keeping our intensity from rising as fast as it might have. In other words, slowing it down. Other times we may find that our interventions don't necessarily make the intensity go down, but it does keep the intensity from growing, essentially stopping the intensity in its tracks. This is important to notice because it shows that the intervention is working, even if the SUDS do not necessarily go down with each intervention. In this situation, Natasha lowered her intensity enough that she didn't have additional worry thoughts until her meeting. This left her feeling a moderate level of stress, but not so much stress that she was unable to handle herself effectively in the meeting with her boss. During the meeting, she practiced deep breathing, keeping her mood in check. This allowed her to hear feedback from her boss about her performance without her emotions becoming overwhelming. At the end of the meeting, because she was not highly alarmed, the two of them were able to brainstorm together some ways of helping her catch up on some of the work she was falling behind on. This is how she would finish the chain analysis. Met with boss. Practiced deep breathing. Fear, 4. Received feedback calmly. Made a plan with the boss for getting caught up on work. Fear, 3. The outcome here was that Natasha felt accomplished for handling her feelings the way that she did in such a stressful situation. Because she effectively managed her emotions, she was invited by her boss to collaboratively plan ways to help her get caught up on her workload. An unintended effect of regulating her emotions was that Natasha experienced being supported by her boss, even though she was behind on some tasks at work, further boosting her mood. Using chain analysis allowed Natasha to look at the effects her thoughts and behavior had on her emotions. As you become used to using chain analysis yourself, you too will be able to use this tool to notice and understand the ways that your thoughts and behaviors impact your emotions, allowing you to make wise and skillful decisions about how you're responding to stressful events on your way to creating a life you experience as worth living.